any more conclusions. We're going to take a look at that handwritten statement in box 3.2.2, right? And that is here. Okay, and so again, this is a little bit similar to what we looked at before, except before it was really hard to read. This one should be a lot easier to read, right? So if I were you guys, yeah, take a look at this, think about it, right? But this one, I'd have to say it's a lot simpler, right? It's not tough. He is great. He's great. I wish I saw him earlier, right? Not too tough. Okay. All right, anyhow, guys, but more importantly, what we do need to take a look at are some of the conclusions. Now, each of these conclusions, all of these points here, are related to the assumptions that we looked back at in box 3.1, right? So let's take a look here at conclusion number 1. Okay, when beginning to read a text, or where there is little or no helpful context, we depend on decoding letters to understand words, but as soon as there is a meaningful context, we tend to bring our own interpretation to the words according to its general shape and the sense of the text rather than according to its exact component letters. Blah, that's really hard to understand. I'll try my best to explain in a second. Thus, reading activities should probably stress reading for understanding rather than decoding. Okay, so the most important point is that last sentence, right? When you are thinking about making a reading activity for your class, you want to focus more on helping your students to read and understand rather than focusing on having them read and decode. Now, what that really means is when you're giving your students a reading activity, you're trying to find a reading text, try to find something that is related to vocabulary that you have taught recently with a few words that are a bit harder, right? Don't go look for a reading text that is really, really hard, because if it's really, really hard, they're going to spend most of their time just looking at that text and decoding it in their head. And remember, decoding means they're going to look at the individual letters and kind of sound it out in their mind, but they're not actually going to understand it, right? So it's better when you're finding a text to focus on a text that will include most of the vocabulary being at a level that they can understand. If there's a few words in there that you think are kind of tough, that's okay. But generally, really try to avoid using a text that is too hard, because they're just going to spend too much time decoding it and thinking about the sound and not enough time actually understanding it. And that's a big problem, right? Because again, when it comes to reading, our main aim is for them to read and understand, right? Okay, all right, but let's take a look at the second point we got here.